Hey there, Hunters, and welcome back to the Gunner's Guild. Today in Remnant 2, we're going to be talking about the first DLC that dropped to Remnant 2, The Awakened King. This is going to be kind of a review of the DLC, as well as kind of just like an overview of like what to expect from it, and just my thoughts on it as a whole. I'm not going to do any builds or anything like that, as I'm still wanting to discover all the items first, and there are still some patches that are going to be coming out to fix some of the bugs. But with that out of the way, let's just get into this. As part of the DLC though, I do want to talk about the patch notes that hit with the DLC. There's nothing major here, like just some decent bug fixes and whatnot, but you should, give them a good look through. The one thing I wanted to point out though was that Corrupted Meridian did get fixed, so no longer scales with mod damage, and now it's going back to scaling with range damage, which is proper. So that was short-lived, but we knew it was coming. But didn't affect my builds at all, so just a heads up. So the Awakened King DLC is a third quest line for the Losum biome. This means that when you roll a campaign or adventure, you can now get Nightweaver, Phelan and Faerun, or the Undying King as your world boss, and their respectable overworlds. This new questline DLC comes with its own unique overworld, as well as 3 new bosses, 3 ranged weapons, 5 mods I believe, I think 5 melee weapons, 2 armor sets, don't know how many mutators, I think I got them all, but I'll double check with that, maybe like 7 mutators, 20 additional traits, and like 40 trinkets. And although some of the new trinkets are corpse drops in other biomes like Narud and Yesha, so you will need to go back and explore those to get those as well. I'll get a complete list of accurate information once everything is found. And I do hope to make some videos and documents on that and where it is and how to get them and all that stuff for all the DLC things, but that's going to take some time, so bear with me while I work on that too, please. But I'm super excited just because there's so many new things to play with and collect. So yeah, I'm just a little giddy. Now, what's unique about this pseudo campaign for the Awakened King is that you can select it as an adventure, and it comes with one pre-generated layout that everybody has. This is full of pretty much all the new stuff. It's still slightly random, I believe, as far as like corpse drops and injectables that can spawn, but for the most part, the entire layout is static, like it's a fixed seed. So you can enjoy almost a completely new experience right away. The overworld for the Undying King is also very large, with lots of little secrets, shortcuts, NPCs, questlines, and all sorts of stuff to complete and find. And I'd say your first run through, while being thorough, will probably take you about 6 to 8 hours depending on your difficulty. But you're also going to need to do this multiple times to collect everything, of course, because it's Remnant after all. And so when you complete the first and only pre-generated layout, your subsequent adventures for this will be randomly generated per the norm. As in, you will still get the same overworld, but all the side areas and spawn tables will be randomized. I think this is a pretty cool idea for a few reasons. So first off is that it lets players experience all the new content and pretty much only all the new content. So they don't buy a DLC and then go, I've already been here, I've already fought these bosses, and kind of wonder where the content is, kind of like Swamps of Courses. All the content's just going to be right there in your face, and I like that. And also because Remnant is Remnant, you can do subsequent playthroughs to find new layouts, new questlines to complete, and new loot to get. And that's just awesome, because there are some things that you need certain, injectables and dungeons and biomes to, mash up, so you can actually complete some unique questlines. So yeah, I do think the experience overall with the DLC is presented properly, effectively, and overall, good job. Now, from my experience of the DLC, I played through on Apocalypse because why would you not? And this was before the patch today where they nerfed the damage of the Green Goblins, who basically one-shot you with sniper-like accuracy from across a room, and they were hidden all over the place. Good times. Those guys kind of suck. But overall, I was quite enamored with the setting, the NPCs, and the enemies because honestly, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't playtest this DLC, so I was going in completely blind, which is kind of awesome for me because I had played Remnant 2 for like a year, so when that finally launched, I kind of knew everything already, so it's nice to get a fresh take on this. And the enemies in general were incredibly scary, more so than the bosses. But the boss fights were pretty cool, and I don't hate any of them. I just thought the environments were more difficult. So the first new boss here, though, is a Witch Elite mini-boss that is like in this weird like Minotaur maze. It's tight quarters, and it's a crazy lady who swings a giant hammer around, and yeah, that's kind of scary when you're kind of cramped like that. Kind of reminded me of the Unclean One fight in Remnant 1. And she would periodically leave at certain HP thresholds to spawn somewhere else in the maze, and summon pigs to harass you in the meantime. I know a lot of people didn't like her, but I thought she was a pretty fun fight. I would definitely fight her again. The second boss was Bruin, and it was here that I realized that the stamina penalty for armor was fixed, and I was running out of stamina a lot faster than I remembered. But he's pretty simple. He's pretty much just melee and in your face all the time, but ultimately just an elite mini boss. He does have this unique phase where he will retreat to the opposite ends of the arena and go full Gates of Babylon on you and throw hundreds of spears, which feel impossible to avoid, but then all you gotta do is run underneath him and then you're okay. He's a fun fight, not particularly hard, but he is fun, just you really have to maintain your stamina very well. And then the last boss fight is the Awakened King, who admittedly wasn't difficult at all, and I think the first two bosses were harder. Like, once you learn his patterns and you see all his moves like once or twice, you're pretty much in the clear, because he's only got like 4 attacks. Now, and I thought there would be like a phase 3 of this guy or something, but nah, he just kind of falls over. He feels like a world boss for sure, but he's not something as grand as like Annihilation or Iskall Queen, stuff that we're kind of used to seeing for like, you know, big iconic bosses. So that was just a little sad. Ultimately though, the environments and the enemies were really awesome, and again, scarier than the bosses. But I didn't have too much trouble cruising through the whole, you know, DLC on the Apocalypse mode. I still enjoyed it quite a bit though, of course. I don't think Remnant 2 is all that hard in general. And of course, I still have to go back and do this a bunch of times, you know, and collect a bajillion trinkets and weapons before I start, you know, getting into the builds. But speaking of builds, I will be doing that soon, I'm sure. But as I mentioned, there are some issues preventing me from starting the build making process, which I want to cover real quick. First is that I just don't have all the items. This isn't a problem, as it's just giving me something to do, but I do feel like I need to make builds, and I can't make builds until I have all the tools. I hope you understand, it's going to be a few days before I get to that. The second is that there are bugs with dots right now that's preventing me from playing them efficiently, and so it's kind of why I've been avoiding dot builds. Timekeeper's Jewel and Affliction, which is the trait from Ritualist, are both increasing your status duration, but not actually increasing your status damage. So instead of doing 500 damage over 10 seconds for 50 damage a tick, you're going to be doing 500 damage over 20 seconds for 25 damage a tick, which is pretty lame. So these need to get fixed before I dive into making other dot builds. I'm sure there are other like weird effects with the other rings and stuff that like increase or reduce the duration of your dots, but you know, we'll see what happens. But Ritual itself feels great. I love its skills, I love the kit. I'm really excited to play dot builds, just gotta wait for that patch, which I know will be here. There already did a patch today that fixed Energized Net Coil, which is proccing way too much. Now it's got like a 5-second internal cooldown, which is fine. But yeah, it'll get updated soon, and then I'll do dot stuff later. For the next builds I wanted to do were skill-based builds, now that we can get 100% skill cooldown, which means you can pretty much use any skill infinitely, which is going to be nerfed. You don't actually want 100% skill cooldown because it just breaks your skills, but 98% lets you have permanent overclock for Engineer, or just spam Stomp with Challenger, or Infinite Wormhole with Invader. So yeah, it's going to get capped to like 75% skilled cooldown, so I can't really build around skilled cooldown reductions because again, that's going to be changed in the future. So there's no point in doing that right now. So those builds are going to be in the back burner, but we'll see what happens. And of course, it's going to be leaving me with melee and hugs. And well, Boar exists, so there are people using that, and I want to do an updated melee build, which I probably will do, but I'm hoping Boar gets fixed because, you know, if I make any sort of melee videos, people are going to be like, why aren't you using Boar? I can kill this boss in 8 seconds. Like, yeah, because Boar's a fucking exploit, but I'm not doing that. Anyway, and then we have Hugs, which actually didn't change too much with this DLC, but still managed to get better because that self-bleed ring is super OP. And that's something I'm still going to do, and I'll make a video on that first. So, but that's going to be coming up once I finish collecting all the gear. So I guess to wrap up this whole DLC experience in my eyes, the surface level engagement stuff is great. I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy the whole thing, and again, that's awesome. But for me, the fun part is about making builds and testing stuff, which is kind of on hold due to some itemization issues. I still do highly recommend people giving the DLC a go because there's still a ton to collect. They fixed co-op hit detection recently, so that's great, and the cross saves are coming too, and so there's plenty of reasons to stay on top of Remnant 2. And the dev team is hard at work at making bug fixes and changes. I mean, I talk to them all the time. I'm seeing all the stuff that's coming out. They're doing patches today. They're going to do patches like in 2 days. Trust me, they're on top of it. So I have full faith that I can resume build making within the week. So yay, stay tuned for more from me on that stuff, and of course I'll keep covering major updates with Remnant DLC because I love this franchise so much. But yeah, that's gonna be all for me. Thank you all for watching, and thanks to my Patreon members, much appreciated. If anyone wants to talk shop about Remnant or gaming in general, feel free to join my Discord in the description below. But yeah, thanks and good luck out there, hunters.